So, what do you actually need to know about MegaEdit in order to effectively use Infigo Invent? So there's a few different topics we'll be covering in this tutorial. We'll take a look at how to customize the MegaEdit editor. You can see here, for example, that I've customized the color scheme of the editor to match the Infigo branding. However, you can customize that as you see fit, with logos in various places, with instructions to your end users, and we'll show you how to do that. We'll demonstrate to you how you actually create a MegaEdit product from within Infigo. We essentially need to pre-configure a product to be a MegaEdit product, and then we are able to import the MEX file from Infigo Invent into that product. So this is a necessary precursor step. We'll also take a look at resources. So, as I briefly mentioned earlier on, a lot of the resources are passed over from Infigo Invent via the MEX file into MegaEdit. However, it's important to understand the different types of resources that are going to be brought over and what exactly they do. It's also important that you understand how to actually utilize the MegaEdit editor, as even if you're using Infigo Invent, that's only used to actually set up your templates. It's not going to be used to actually purchase and configure your products. That will still be done within MegaEdit itself, so therefore you really need to understand how to navigate the editor. There are a few options which are MegaEdit only configuration options, so this is things such as setting up pricing, and there's additional advanced features such as batch scripts where we can import vast quantities of information, which again is not going to be included in Invent itself, so you need to understand how they are applied within MegaEdit. So let's begin by looking how to customize the MegaEdit editor itself. Three main areas of interest here. We'll take a look at modifying the color scheme. We'll take a look at applying logos to your loading screen for MegaEdit, and we'll look at additional help options that you have available as well. These will only be summary overviews. I'll provide links to additional details and additional videos on these topics should you be interested in further information. So to start off with the color scheme. So if we go to our admin area of our Infigo storefront, and then we're going to navigate over on the left-hand side to our appearance settings. Within here, you may be familiar with your upload of your logos and your color scheme to your storefront itself. However, if you scroll a little bit further down, you'll find that there are some additional color options which are associated with the MegaEdit editor. So we're able to modify those colors the same way in which you would modify your storefront colors themselves further up this page. And then once those have been applied, we hit save, and then those will now instantly be available. So if I refresh our MegaEdit window that I have open on a separate tab, we'll find that the loading window has already had a change of color, as has the main MegaEdit interface. Next, we'll take a look at uploading your logo to the MegaEdit editor loading screen. So we'll have to be quick to show this, but if I refresh that product, you can see there's a logo visible at the top of the screen there, and I'll show you how to configure that option. So the first thing we need to do is to go to the editable content area, which is under content management and editable content. And then scrolling down to section 3, you'll see that there are a few options there to do with MegaEdit. One of which is to do with the MegaEdit loading screen logo. It's simply a case of going to edit on that particular content block, and then you can just import an image however you see fit. My recommendation would be to use the existing content templates, where you can just import and upload an image. So that's been uploaded, so I'll give that a save. And then when I refresh, we should see an updated logo on the loading screen. We also have a few options for providing help to our end users. So one of those is also on the loading screen. So again, if I hit refresh, you'll see that we have a few hints down at the bottom of the screen. Those hints can be customized, and you can add as many or as few as you like. So if I again navigate to section 3 in our editable content, then you'll see we have MegaEdit loading screen hints. Go over to edit, and then it's simply a case of making bulleted lines with the hints you want to include. And then when you're loading your MegaEdit product, it will choose from one of those hints. The other option for help we have available is a pop-up window that appears upon loading your MegaEdit product. So if I navigate to the actual product itself, in the product management screen, and go to edit, what we'll find is that there is an instructions section when we're specifying our MegaEdit product specifications. Now, most of these we haven't covered quite yet. We will cover most of those during the course of this tutorial. For now, we'll stick to instructions. And if we scroll down this list, what we're looking for is the Catfish Editor instruction panel. So I can check that on and hit save. And then if I navigate back to my editable content, I'm then going to go to the Infigo Editor instruction panel. So this is an editable content block which is shared with the Infigo Editor, which is somewhat of a legacy product for the new users. Go to edit, and then I can populate this with whatever content I like to help our customers out, to help our users navigate the MegaEdit product. Now, there's a separate tutorial video on customizing this in more detail. For now, I'm just going to leave it as the simple text that's displayed here. Save that content, and then refresh our product. And what you'll see is that upon loading, that instruction window now appears, allowing us to provide input to our users. So next we'll take a look at actually creating a MegaEdit product. Now, the traditional methodology of doing this is to initially create a stock product and then convert it into a MegaEdit product. Changes have been made to the development process of creating new products, where now you can directly create products of a certain type. So if I go to our catalog, products, and product management, click add new to create a new product, and rather than just directly creating a stock product, we now have the option to create products of different types. I can choose a MegaEdit product, and then we have the option to upload an invent package. So you don't have to do this now if you don't already have the MEX file available, but if you have already created your template and want to import it into MegaEdit, you can do it at this stage. Alternatively, if you click create, this will create a blank MegaEdit product. From this point, if you need to update or import a MEX file into an existing MegaEdit product, if you go to the MegaEdit configuration settings of that particular product, which can be accessed through the product settings or by going to the MegaEdit products screen and hitting edit, we have this MEX import button on the top left of those options, which allows you to directly import one of those MEX files. For this section, I've created a blank MegaEdit product in which I'm going to show you some of the resource types which we can create and utilize within MegaEdit. Now, the reason I need to show you this is because a lot of these resource types are automatically created and applied when you're importing your MEX template from Infigo Invent. However, it's important that you understand what these resources are and what we need to use them for. So the first thing to understand with any of these resources, most of which are listed across these tabs here when we're looking at a MegaEdit product configuration, is that they're not actually specified on these tabs themselves on a product by product basis. What we do is we specify these resource groups separately. So think of it as a separate folder of available canvases or a separate folder of available clip art images. And then we can apply those to products. And this is in case we want to utilize the same resource on multiple different products. So if we were approaching this from a MegaEdit perspective, we would start off by creating those resource sets. So if I go to our catalog, product types, and MegaEdit, we can see we've got a list of our MegaEdit products underneath this list here. However, the majority of the remaining options on here are to do with creating the actual resources that we can apply to those MegaEdit products. So there's a few which are mandatory. So we need to have one specified, at least one specified on a MegaEdit product in order for it to function correctly. You can actually see what those are if you go to your MegaEdit products list, which can also be accessed through catalog, product types, MegaEdit, and MegaEdit products. You've got an issues column associated with your MegaEdit products, and in there you can see on my blank MegaEdit product there are 3 issues, and those are the mandatory types. So we need a stock item, we need a canvas item, and we need an output type item. Before we can actually apply those to a product, we need to make sure that we have some of those specified. So if I go first off to my MegaEdit canvas, you can see in my case I've got a few examples already available. But what we're essentially doing here is specifying the workspace that our customers can utilize. So you might only provide them with one canvas size. You might provide them with a dynamic canvas size that they can modify the size of themselves, or multiple different options to choose from. And they're all set up from this screen. So there is a full tutorial on this if you want the in-depth information. However, in here, I'll just show you the bare bones of creating a canvas. So I'll just go to add new. And then we have a simple specification of our canvas where I can define the size of that canvas, either with some pre-configured dimensions. So portrait and landscape, A-sized stock. And then once I've selected one of those, click on set, and it will change the size of the document. Alternatively, I can directly enter the width and the height in here. So in its most basic form, that is our canvas specified. And we can now utilize that on our product. However, we could also make it a dynamic canvas, so where we can actually get the user to choose the size they want to design. If I click on edit on that particular canvas, you'll see there's a few options here for canvas properties and dynamic size. And this is just a case of entering a minimum and a maximum width, minimum and a maximum height, and then the steps between those. And what will happen with this information is that when the customer goes on the product landing page, they will be faced with a few sliders, which will actually allow them to pre-select the size of the canvas they want before launching the MegaEdit editor. We also have the option in here to provide different canvas sizes. So if you want to provide a range of potential sizes but with the same aspect ratio, then you could enter a few records in here, and that will allow the user to select between those different records. Again, all covered in more information in the actual Canvas video. Also on canvases, we can specify something called background categories and layout categories. So background categories allow us to actually directly drag and drop a background to cover the whole canvas. Layouts are how we can save complex configurations of our product pages. So let's say, for example, we've got multiple elements on a page, as we have here, where we've got many different text fields and image fields and a background field, for example. We could save that as a layout for easy access for our customers. So they could just drag and drop a layout onto one of the pages and it will auto configure and create all of the relevant fields for them to use. Next on the list of mandatory resources is stock. So this is just the specification of the material that's going to be printed on. Quite simple specifications. I can just hit on create, and then you'll see that we just need a name, a description, and then we have some basic inputs to do with the thickness of the stock, if it requires any price adjustment, if this stock is selected. So does this make it more expensive, for example? A weight of the stock, so grams per meter squared, and we can input some initial color and texture information as well, which is just there for the preview purposes when you're actually within MegaEdit. So if you specify a color and a texture, those won't be shown on the print output. It is just for preview purposes. And then the last of the mandatory resources is the output type. Now, the vast majority of the settings in here are actually to do with MegaEdit's original functionality, which was primarily targeted at photo books. So it's things like specifying if there's going to be covers on your product, specifying if there's a cover wrap, if there's a gutter or a spine, for example. So for the vast majority of product types, we can just configure these to not be utilized, let's say. Unless you are, of course, configuring some kind of booklet or a photo book where these will be utilized. Also on here, we can specify the bleed. But apart from that, it's a fairly simple specification. If I put test output, I'll leave it as my standard 3mm bleed. And then I'm just going to quickly configure this. So I won't use covers. I won't need a gutter. I won't need a spine or a margin. And I can specify price and weight factor changes if this particular output type is selected. So if I choose an output type that's slightly more expensive to manufacture, or we want to put a markup on, we could include a price factor. Whilst not strictly a mandatory resource, in order to get the best out of our MegaEdit products, we do also need to specify which fonts we want to be able to utilize. So if I navigate to the general data section of our MegaEdit resources, also accessible through catalog, product types, MegaEdit, and general data. The third tab across here is our fonts category. And you'll see that I have a few entries in here, but by default, you will have the Infigo default fonts. Now, these are 12 fonts which are fully licensed and you're able to apply to your products and to utilize. The reason I'm telling you about this is that by default, those are not activated on your MegaEdit products. So when you actually load up your product, if you haven't specified which font sets you want to use, you'll have difficulty in configuring any text fields. So now I'll quickly show you how we actually define those on our product. So if I go back to our MegaEdit products list, we've created all of those resources, but as I've mentioned, and I'm trying to drill home, those are not currently applied to our product. As you can see, there's still issues that those are not assigned. If I go to Edit, and then go to the relevant tabs across the top here, I'm able to activate the resources that I want to use for that particular product. And I can select multiple in here. I'm not limited to just one. And with those assigned, you'll see that I now have no issues on my list here. And I should now be able to launch the product. And what we'll be faced with is our blank template. There are a number of optional resources that we're also able to bring into our MegaEdit products. You can see a list of those over on the left-hand side, and most of these are specified in exactly the same way. So it's still a case of creating a category for that particular resource, and then assigning that category to the products we want to utilize it on. So I'll just use one example here. I'll use a clip art category. And again, if you want to see these in more detail, if you plan to use MegaEdit for this purpose, there are more detailed videos available in the MegaEdit series. So I'm going to go to the general data section. You can see I have a few clip art categories already defined in my case. However, I'm going to create a new one. It's then a case of going to configure that particular clip art category and uploading the resources I want to include within it. When the thumbnails appear, those resources are uploaded, and now it's just a case of assigning that to our product. Then that will be available within our editor. And just to reiterate, most of those other optional resources, such as masks, placeholders, fonts, which we covered before, spot colors, backgrounds, and layouts, are all configured in the same way. You create a category, assign the resources you want to the category, and then apply it to a product. Next, we'll take a look at utilizing the MegaEdit editor. And this is a pretty important one because you will still need to utilize this functionality once you've imported your MEX file from Invent into MegaEdit. It's also what your customers are going to be using to interact with your template. So it's a critical thing to have a bit of background knowledge on. So again, there's a more detailed video than this on the MegaEdit series, if you're interested in viewing that. This is just going to be a summary overview. to give you the fundamentals of that functionality. So starting from the main navigation bar at the top of the screen, you have a back button which will return you to the product landing page. And then you have a menu. Now this will split into two major parts, with the divider being this section here. So anything above this is what both you and your end users will be able to see. There might be some slight variation in the options available based on what you allow your customer to access, but that is generally the case, that customers will be able to see those settings. Underneath there are administrator only settings. So this is for you as the template designer and the administrator of MegaEdit. This is how you would actually configure your products, add some advanced settings, and critically, and we'll use this a few times, the ability to emulate user mode. So this allows you to actually interact with the product the same way in which your end user would. So when you're actually interacting with this template in, let's call it administrator mode, you can do pretty much everything. So you can transform things, you can resize, you can add new elements and move new elements and all that kind of stuff. However, you might not want your end user to be able to do that. So you, as part of Invent or within MegaEdit itself, you specify limitations on what the customer can actually do. When you're in your administrator mode, you can still do everything because you might still be tweaking the template. However, if you want to test what the user is able to do, just click Emulate User Mode. And we'll show that in practice a little bit later on. Other critical options in here, you have Save as Product Default. So once you've started making your template, if you want to actually save that as the primary template that the customer sees when they load the product, click on Save as Product Default. Further along on the top menu, you have Undo and Redo buttons. You have a preview of your final product. And you have the ability to add that product to your basket. On the main window itself, you've got some basic navigation options for zooming in and navigating around certain parts of the canvas. So you've got zoom in and zoom out. You've got reset zoom, so you'll see the full canvas. And you've got a full screen mode as well, if you want a little bit more space to work with and are not too bothered about the navigation bar of the browser. You'll notice on the canvas itself, you see that there's a black and a blue line. The blue line is your bleed line, and the red is the outside of your canvas. Over on the left-hand side, you might see some variation in the options available here, largely depending on the different types of resource that you've input. So for example, because we specified a clip art resource set as part of our earlier part of this video, we now have a clip art section in here, which allows us to view those clip arts and then drag them and drop them onto our canvas. Now, a clip art is a static image. It's something that the customer can just pick from, and it won't interact with separate frames. So what I mean by separate frames, if I go to the Fields tab, that's where we can add an image frame and a text frame. An image frame is considered as more an empty frame, essentially. So customers can upload their own images and add them to this section. Clip arts don't interact with image fields, with image frames. However, any images that have been provided as a part of an image gallery or are uploaded as part of an image gallery can be placed within that frame. So for example, if I just drag and drop one of these into that box, you'll see that it highlights the box and then we'll place the image within the confines of that frame that we specified. So the frame won't resize automatically. If I want to override that image, And just drag and drop again, and it will do so. However, if I try and drag an image over a clip art, we can see that it doesn't interact. There's a separate element. We also have a text field. So that just allows us to add dynamic text box to our canvas. And with any of these fields, so if I add a few examples on there, if you double click on them, you'll get the more advanced options for that particular field. So for example, if I've got an image frame selected and double click, I get some additional options which are to do with sort of transformations of the image, any additional effects, borders, shadow options, and most of these can be restricted if necessary as part of the invent setup, so actually within InDesign, or you can do it on the Details tab. Either option is fine. It's basically just a case of finding the associated setting on here. So for example, we have, by default, the ability to move this frame anywhere as both administrator and end user. However, if I go to the Details tab and say this is now a fixed position, then if I go and emulate user mode, as we saw a moment ago, that can now not be moved. And we can restrict pretty much every other element of those advanced options as well. So we can limit the ability to rotate, we can stop people deleting the frame, stop people resizing, don't allow people to apply effects or borders or shadows. All of them can be controlled on this tab or from within Invent, as we'll see in future videos. And that applies to image frames, clip arts, and text frames. You might find slightly different options between them, but the general functionality is the same. So to reiterate, when it comes to importing information from Invent into MegaEdit, generally speaking, you may not have to do some manual modification in MegaEdit. So you will have already configured in Invent what customers are allowed to interact with, if they're allowed to move things, if they're allowed to apply effects or add new fields. All of that can be defined from within Invent. However, do be aware that you can also configure that from within MegaEdit itself. Also worthy of note in the MegaEdit editor here, if I go to menu, is the product options. Now, we won't go through all of this in any means, but just so that you're aware, a lot of the lesser used options from within MegaEdit can be found within this list. So if there's something you want to try and do, the first place to access to see if it's available, and if there's an option for it, will be in here. This includes things like applying help text. It includes things such as global limiting of certain behaviors. So for example, if I say that I want to forbid adding text or images, that fields option is now empty. So any user can now not add any additional fields to here. So do be aware of that. You will just need to check the product options if there's anything you want to limit on a global level or any additional features that you might want to activate. Okay, so next we're going to take a quick look at the data that's brought over with your Invent Mex file. So a lot of the resources and a lot of the things I've just been showing you then are automatically brought over when you export using the Infigo Invent plugin. And it means that you don't have to manually create them. So whereas we'd manually created the canvas and the stock and the output types, all of that will be automatically extracted from your InDesign file as part of the Mex file. And you can get an understanding as to what exactly has been brought over when you actually import the product into Infigo. So if I go back to our product details. So again, if I'm just going on that particular product, go to the MEX import. And again, we'll see this in a future tutorial, how to import this. But from this, you can get an understanding as to what has been imported and which resources. So we've kept ours fairly simple in this case, but even then, we have a canvas automatically generated, stock, output type, font, and clip art. And all of the legwork has been done for us. So rather than having to manually create it and then assign it to a product, those steps have been done automatically. So it's much, much faster to get up and running with this product. So there's multiple types of things that will be brought over. In terms of resources, we're looking at canvas, stock, output types, fonts, clip arts, spot colors, and backgrounds. So there's other things that it will import as well. Primarily, we're talking about variables. This is things such as text inputs, color selectors, image selectors, which are generated as part of a form. Now, it also brings over information on the form layout, so you can customize how the form looks. And on the form, you can specify pieces of logic as well. So if statements, if you want to show things, hide things, automatically set resources or variables based on the selection of another one, all that can be specified in Invent and brought over as part of your MEX file. It will also bring over the number of pages in your default product. So if you've got a template as a MEX, which has 2 pages, then your resulting MegaEdit product will have 2 pages. Now, do be aware that there are some things which are configured in MegaEdit only and Invent is not designed to do. So first and foremost, we're talking about pricing here. When we're looking at Invent, we are just looking at the actual product itself. Anything to do with the pricing of that product or the shipping of the product or whatever else it may be is obviously covered in Figo. And then we also have page layout. So I've briefly mentioned these before. This is where we want to actually save some layouts for the customer to be able to choose from. Those, again, are created from within Figo and within MegaEdit. There's a separate video detailing exactly how you want to do that if you are interested to see that. But you can create the various pages laid out in Invent if you wish to do so, but actually creating them as selectable layouts will be done in MegaEdit. And finally, we have batch scripts. So again, this is something we have a detailed video on if you are interested. However, as a summary, this basically allows us to upload data sets into our MegaEdit products. Now, this is something that's done within MegaEdit and not within Invent. So essentially, you would set up your template within Invent, bring the MEX file over to MegaEdit, and then you would add your data set as part of a batch script to potentially actually populate that template that you brought over. So for example, you might bring over a data file with a few hundred employee names on it, which you want to add onto business cards. You could auto-populate those and send them off to your basket to order. There's a brief summary of where those are activated. They're on the MegaEdit product. Scripts. There's a lot of scripts to choose from, and the 2 primary batch scripts are in the standard batch script, which lets you upload text documents or CSV documents, and then the standard batch upload options, which allows you to do Excel files, so XLS or XLSX.